Team 1. Breach, breach, breach.
You're listening to Breach Your Mind.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. You know, a little while back when Chris and I were getting ready to do one of the episodes, he made a comment to me, or asked a question rather. He said, how come everything has to always be so serious? You know, everything we talk about, it's always serious. And my response to him was, well, I mean, it's, kind of to help people when they're going through some things or trying to figure some stuff out. You know, it's pretty serious to some people, and that's kind of what we're geared at. And in getting ready for this show, I got to thinking about it. And I don't know why, but I got to thinking about that comment or that question. And it dawned on me that, yeah, it was, things kind of been, the more darker side of things. And, maybe lightening it up wouldn't be such a bad idea. Maybe add some levity to what we're doing here, because often enough, helping out with things and stuff like that is getting a laugh. So I figured, why not? So, to kind of add some levity, instead of going the route that we've been going, I figured I'd share a little bit of the insight, a little bit of the background of me, what, helped bring me to where I am. And I guess one of the best times, especially considering, what season it is and being summer and all, would kind of be from my childhood. So I got a buddy of mine, for all intents and purposes, he's my brother. We've known each other. I don't even want to try to count the years at this point. It's well over 20. But me and my buddy Trey, we met when I went to middle school here in the local county. First time I ever met him, we were in the sixth grade. And, we didn't live too far from each other. Back then, we walked and rode bikes to each other's house all the time. And I met him then. And our friendship kind of grew over the years to the point where, we were pretty much inseparable. Everywhere he was, I was, and vice versa. More so the first, where he was, I was. I was kind of a nerd back then. Glasses for a good portion of my life, and had a mullet at one point in those earlier years. Not real proud of that now, but I did. But our friendship grew to the point where, his family was my family and my family was his family. And we would share a lot of life together. And some of my fondest memories, amongst the many over our years, were during the summers back in our teens. I'd say probably 16, 17 years old. That's been a while now. But during the summers, was when we'd always have our most fun. We'd have a lot of fun during the rest of the time, but the summers is when, moms and dads left us alone and, kind of left to our own devices. And with me having a driver's license, I'm a little bit older than he is, but with me having a driver's license, it was nothing for us to jump in one of my vehicles and take off down the road to find something to do. And one of the places we used to go during the summer is we'd go down to his grandparents' house down in Darien, Georgia. And I don't know if it was 100% Darien. I know Darien was close, but we would go down there and we'd spend a week or so down at his grandparents' house. And, there may be plenty of people that are sitting here thinking, why would you go to a grandparent's house? There's, not really much you can do at a grandparent's house. And typically I wouldn't disagree with you, except for his grandparents lived on the river. And the river, had, plenty of salt water in it. That saltwater, freshwater kind of mix thing. I say that I don't really know because I'm not that kind of guy, but I know we used to go crab out there. We'd go shrimping. Um, but his parents or his grandparents lived down there on the river, like legitimately had a house on the riverbank with a dock that had a boat lift on it and all that good stuff. His granddad was, for the better sense of the word, a genius. He would sit there and just create all kinds of things. His shop was full of all kinds of things that he would just sit out there and piddle with and make different things. So at the top of the dock up on the bank, there was a shower. That way, when you got done swimming in the river, you just come back up and pull on the handle and give yourself a quick shower before you go in and get the salt water off of you. And we spent a lot of time down there during the summers. We spent several summers down there. Not only did we have a good time, but his grandparents were good people. His grandma made these things. I think people call them Buckeyes. I just called them peanut butter balls. They were just literally balls of peanut butter dipped in chocolate. And during the summer, eating a peanut butter ball with a glass of milk, that was some good eating. But during our time down there, we'd do a lot of stuff. Like I said, we'd go fishing. We'd take the boat out. His granddaddy foolishly trusted us to take the boat out, and we'd go out on one of the boats and, just ride up and down the river or do whatever. There was one time where we were riding down the river, and I don't know what we were talking about at the time, but somehow we got on the topic of Baywatch. And this is the David Hasselhoff TV show, Baywatch, not the movie. And, it was pretty popular back then, and we were both fans of it. And we'd seen plenty of episodes where the lifeguard boat's going, across the ocean, and you see the lifeguard dive off the side of the boat with his buoy or whatever they're called, and go rescue the person. Well, we didn't have none of that. We weren't lifeguards, and we definitely weren't trying to save anybody. We're just being stupid and want to reenact those scenes. So we would take turns driving the boat, and while one of us is, and when I say driving the boat, I'm not talking the steering wheel, I'm talking the stick drive where you literally got the hand behind you controlling the motor. So one of us would drive the boat while the other one would bail off the side, trying to dive. And as was prone for us, it would progressively get faster and faster. So it started out kind of putting down the river and taking turns diving off to kind of get used to it. And next thing you know, we're going down the river full throttle trying to dive off. Of course, your hands hit and it throws your body all kind of different ways. And there was this one time where we were down there, and the neighbors were older. So they were, we'd see them outside in the yard every once in a while, but they would have a granddaughter that would come down during the summer, and she was about our age too. And of course, me and Trey, we'd sit over on his grandparents' dock doing whatever we were doing. And we would see her out there, she'd have some Shania Twain playing or something like that out there on the dock, and she's dancing. Of course, both of us teenage boys are just sitting over there on his grandparents' dock, watching her. And of course, every time she'd look our way, we're not looking. But she would sit out there for a few hours dancing, sitting, listening to music. Of course, we were out there anyway. Of course, that's when we decided to get brave and do the real dumb shit. Especially when the water was lower. They had a floating dock for the lower portion, and then up top they had the upper portion of the dock. It was during those times, we didn't really care too much. She was out on the dock, so we had to go and try to show off. It started off just kind of jumping off the handrail, trying to do flips or dive or whatever, which was stupid because according to him, and I never found it, thankfully, one of the floating docks had sunk and was down there somewhere underneath the main dock. Didn't matter too much to us. We were jumping off there anyway. So, we're both fortunate we didn't become paralyzed. But like I said, we'd start off by just kind of jumping off the handrail, trying to do flips or whatever, until eventually it got to the point where, we would start at the bank, run down the dock as fast as we could, and then just kind of launch ourselves over the handrail. And we were, constantly talking to each other, and Trey was more the ladies' man than me. Big shocker, with the mullet and the glasses and all. But, we would sit there and go back and forth with one another about who was going to wind up talking to her, who was going to go down there and make that first impression. And, for somebody that was more the ladies' man, he was just as scared to go down there as I was. He may tell you different, but he was just as scared to go down there as I was. Don't know why, but we were. So we hatched an idea. We had this idea that we would go out there, jump in the river, and then just casually swim over to her dock, because they had an upper and a lower dock as well. We'd casually swim over to her dock and then strike up a conversation. It took us a little bit to get to the point where we were going to go do it, but we both finally had the idea. So we finally got the courage, and we were going to do it. So we got up on the handrail, and of course we counted to 3, and both of us jumped off and started swimming. The thing we didn't think about in our little plan was the fact that the water in the river was tidal, which means it's going one direction at some point, and then it's going another direction at another point, as the tide comes in and goes out. And so here we are, we jump off the railing and into the river, and we start swimming down there, not, Michael Phelps swimming or anything, but we're kind of leisurely swimming our way down there, and the tide was coming in. And about halfway between the docks, I guess it was the idea that struck us both at the same time of, all right, this is kind of stupid. We're being dorks about this. We should just walk over and talk to her. That's me putting my adult thought on it. But either way, we both chickened out and decided we weren't doing it. And we almost turned around at the same time and started trying to swim back to Trey's dock. And, I mentioned before, we hadn't thought it out all the way, and the tide was going in. So we were swimming against the current, because we were now upstream. We were upflow his dock was upstream, upflow from her dock. So here we are, both trying to swim against the current to get back to his dock. Now, mind you, neither one of us were slouches for swimming. Both of us at this point were certified divers. We were working with the volunteer fire department in our local town, and we're on the dive rescue team. We'd gone through, a bunch of diving classes and things like that. So we were certified divers, and, we could swim pretty decent, but not strong enough for the current. We also didn't understand that in order to defeat current, you needed to swim at an angle, not straight up it. So here we both are swimming, trying to swim, and we realized that we weren't gaining any ground on his dock. We were losing. So we start swimming harder and harder and harder and harder. And, to the point where we're both, swimming as hard as we can. And the best we could do was maintain our position. Of course, all the splashing and everything like that obviously got this girl's attention. So when, at one point I look back, she's standing on the upper dock looking over at us, halfway between the docks, a little less toward, her dock now. She's looking at us, both sitting out there trying to swim against current, looking like a bunch of dummies. And which didn't help things, so we're swimming harder and harder, trying to get away. And it just wasn't happening. And one of us looked at the other, at the same time or whatever. And, it was, then we realized we were, past the point of no return at that point. There was no going back to the dock unless we drifted past her dock and went somewhere else. That was the only way we were going to avoid making contact with her. And so we eventually kind of gave in, and let ourselves drift down to her dock, which we didn't have a whole lot of choice in that because we were pretty much gassed at that point. And so we wind up drifting down to her dock, and the lower docks, both on hers and on Trey's grandparents, had a ladder so you could climb out of the water easy. So we kind of got to her ladder, and we kind of hung on to the ladder, and we were looking up at the upper dock at her. She's looking down at us, not knowing us not knowing her. And we're like, hey, we're sorry. We didn't think about the current. You mind if we come up and, come up your dock and walk back next door? And she said it was fine. So we climbed up, and we wound up going up on the dock and having conversation. And, we didn't walk straight back. We were having conversation about it. And I think Trey wound up asking her if she wanted to come over later. We were going to be swimming at nighttime, which, thinking back on it now, I'm not real, as an adult, I'm not real big on swimming in salt water when it's dark. Just because from everything I was told, that was kind of feeding times for the things with teeth. And I don't really like being food. So he asked her if she wanted to come over and hang out with us. And she was, happy to. I presume that, like us, she didn't really have a whole lot of friends down there since she was visiting her grandparents and we were visiting his grandparents. You don't really, get a whole lot of friends when you're just doing that visiting thing. So she said, yeah. And of course, we eventually walked back next door, both of us feeling pretty proud of ourselves. And of course, Trey bragging about, how he's the one that got her to come over and hang out with us. So, fast forward a little bit, dinner comes around and, we eat dinner, both of us kind of excited about, what's gonna happen about her coming over, because we'd been, a couple summers now, we've been looking at this girl dancing on the dock next to us. And now she's going to be, hanging out with us. So we eat up and get changed. And as soon as the sun goes down and it's good and dark outside, we flip the lights on for the dock and head out to the dock. Of course, we're sitting out there and we're waiting. And, she hadn't come. And of course, I was, quite accustomed to, not having that interaction. So it wasn't a big deal for me. And Trey was like, man, I don't think she's going to come. I'm like, yeah, probably not. Well, it wasn't too terribly long. I imagine it seemed longer than that because we were, anticipating it so much. But she come walking next door and, walking down the dock. And we stood around, talked, listened to some music, and the idea come up about going swimming. And of course, there's a pretty girl. We're not gonna chicken out. You gotta man up. You can't chicken out and look like some wimp. So, we all decided, yeah, we're gonna go swimming. It doesn't matter that it's 9:30 at night. It doesn't matter. So we get in our swimming shorts, and she goes and gets in her bikini, and she comes back, and we start swimming. We go down to the lower dock, jumping off the lower dock, having a good time. And then we brought up, the fact that we, normally we jump off the top. We don't usually jump off the bottom dock. That's all fine if you're a kid and everything, but jumping from the height, that's where the real fun is. So, we went back up, and of course, me and Trey were taking turns jumping off the top, and we're trying to encourage her to do it. And eventually she did. So she jumps in, and we all swim around. We're laughing and having a good time. And she goes over to the ladder, gets out, and is on the lower dock, just kind of standing there. And if I haven't said it enough, I want to, remind you that I said I was, kind of a nerd, a dork. And I swim up to the ladder to get out. And just as I got on the ladder and started to climb up, I look at her, and her top had come down on one side. So I froze. 16, 17 years old, however old I was. I didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do. There's this girl we had been looking at, for a couple summers now, and I'm seeing something I didn't think I'd expect to. And I was just frozen. I couldn't say nothing. I couldn't do nothing. She just sitting there looking at me. And Trey swims up and he grabs a hold. He's like, come on, man, get up there. And I'm like, Trey, hey, look, not quite that boisterous, but, I made sure that he understood there was a reason I wasn't going up the ladder. And of course, he looks up and he's just kind of staring at her and I'm staring at her and she's looking at both of us and she's kind of got this, confused look on her face. And neither one of us, and I'd never seen Trey freeze up like that before. But neither one of us knew what to do. The three of us are just sitting there. Me and Trey are, dangling off the ladder in the river like fish food. And here she is up there in all her glory. And at some point, Trey pulled himself kind of up on the ladder and she goes, what? And Trey just looks at her and goes, your boob's hanging out, and then jumps back in the water. Of course, at this point, I'm mortified and I drop back into the water. I go underwater because I didn't know what else to do. And come back up. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, blah, 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 whatever. I've told the story a couple times now, and people said, yeah, she knew. A lot of guys said that. Of course, we all say that. But I've had some females that was like, no, she knew that was happening. She wasn't oblivious to it. I don't know whether she was or not. I just knew I was immensely embarrassed. Eventually me and Trey both swim back to the ladder and we're trying to get out. Now both of us are trying to scramble to get out of the water. And as luck would have it, especially my luck, we're both on the ladder trying to get out of the water and the ladder broke. And Trey's granddad made this ladder. It was made out of PVC filled with concrete. And as the ladder breaks, of course, both of us drop down and I managed to grab a hold of the rung, the last rung that didn't break. And, of course, I latched my feet underneath the ladder that had broken off, not thinking about it. It just happened. And Trey winds up climbing out and he's like, why aren't you getting out? And I'm like, because I've still got the ladder. He says, what? I said, I've still got the ladder. I managed to get it up to my feet and pick the ladder up and hand the ladder off to him and climb out. And the rest of the night was fine. Swimming was pretty much done at that point. But that was fine by me. I was already embarrassed, so I was ready to stop swimming. Finished having a good time, and she goes back next door, and me and Trey go inside. And of course, next day, Trey's granddaddy, he gets up, before the crow or before the rooster does, and he goes out to the dock to do whatever. Sees the ladder broken. He's comes in and, what happened to the ladder? And of course, Trey, being the quick wit that he was, oh, granddaddy, we were taking the ladder down there because we take it out at nights. We were taking the ladder down there and I dropped it and it broke. He looks at us and he goes, it broke, huh? Dropped it and it broke. He said, yes, sir. He goes, had nothing to do with that girl that was over here last night, did it? Of course, I'm now embarrassed because of his granddaddy, not knowing what his granddaddy saw. And Trey's like, all right, me and Brian were swimming and we were getting out the water and it broke. He goes, yeah, that sounds more like it. Next time, just tell me the truth. And he goes on about his day. So there you go. I don't know how funny that was to you guys, but that's a fond memory for me. It's something I think about. And considering how I still kind of see myself as just a bigger version of that 16, 17-year-old self, the comedy in it, the laughter and everything in it, the levity is there for me. So I don't know how much we'll do of this, but if it's something that's worth a dang, if it's something that adds to the show, then I guess maybe I'll tell some more stories, along with trying to handle the situations that get brought up. And if it doesn't go over well, hey, no skin off my back. So until next time, guys, I appreciate you and be safe. Bye.